Oh, they're good. So we worry about all you. I mean, Thanksgiving, the vacation, everybody interacting with other people can create a new risk. So I hope everybody stays safe, wear your mask, be outside as much as possible. The weather has to oblige. Wash your hands. Pray for a vaccine. Okay, so um, let's see who's here. Ariana, Talia, 11, what's today? 11/17. Oh, Reagan, are you here? The Destiny, I saw you. Rihanna, I saw you. Abby, Veronica, Brenda, Deasia, Elizabeth. Whitney, so great. Okay, so we have a week of class today and Thursday, then Thanksgiving break. Then the week after Thanksgiving is going to be conferences. Um, Let me share the schedule. So on Thursday, I will probably send out a doodle poll to have you sign up for these conferences. So here's the plan. Today and Thursday, we'll keep focusing on writing. Then I'll send out a doodle poll for you to have individual conferences. You will bring the draft to the conferences, or if possible, get it to me a little before, the night before, so that I can actually look at it. We'll see how that goes. I will have conferences scheduled out throughout the week. Don't just pick the end of the week. Uh, for that. And then the revision will be due on December 10th. And there will be a final reflection assignment that I'll be giving you. And that'll be also due on December 10th. Any questions just about the schedule?
So the revision is like our final exam, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a way to look at it. Let me. Did I let? Oh, there we are. Great, everybody is here. The final reflection is also a little bit like the final exam, because the final reflection will ask you to look back over the whole course and think about what you learned. And really the purpose of a final exam is to make you go back over the whole course and think about what you learned. So both of them are in lieu of a final exam. And I'm using the date that they had scheduled for the final exam, were we to have one, which is December 10th. And I think, and then this is just to give you a sense of where we are. I have to turn grades in by December 16th. So that's why I've set that as a deadline. With that as a deadline, I can get everything graded and final grades processed and everything. So just be aware of that. If something happens and you have to use the time. So,
Miss Masson,
yes, ma'am.
I'm fixing to go into a doctor's appointment at 2 o'clock, so I'll be signing off.
Okay. All right. Well, be sure to watch the recording.
Yes, ma'am, will do.
Okay.
Miss Matt, it's Veronica now. Where you've got on there, the exam is scheduled for 1:30 to 3:30 on Thursday.
Yeah.
Is that when we're gonna write the reflection or?
No. I'm just going to have you turn it in on that day.
Okay,
But there is
Okay.
no exam in this class. So I was just I guess that's confusing. I was just giving that to you for reference of why I picked the 1 o'clock. And I will make the deadline 11:59 p.m., not 1:30 to 3:30. Okay. So I want to talk about the annotated bibliographies, which are not due until 11:59 p.m. And so that means you do have time to keep working on them before the end of the day. So we're going to use class kind of like a workshop. I would like you to pull up your annotated bibliography and so that you can look at it as I talk. It's okay if you've already submitted your annotated bibliography, because I have created, I did the Dropbox so that there are up to 3 submissions. And so you can always rework it and submit it again. Also, if you're working on a Google Doc, the reworking will just show up automatically as it is. So here is the course module for this whole project. We did the task 1, task 2. Now this is task 3. And in the assignment sheet, there is a rubric. I'm hoping that everybody knows where they can find rubrics. I try to put them in every assignment, but I don't always. I do always use them for grading. So by the time I grade something, there's definitely a rubric. And we're going to talk about the annotated bibliography, thinking about the rubric. So the rubric has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. The last one is timeliness, so we're not going to care. Now you'll notice I only put 10% on of the grade on the timeliness. So I really don't put that big an effort on it, which is why I'm constantly saying, yes, you can turn things in late. But if you do turn things on time, you get yourself 10% A free. Then the formatting, editing is a 25%. The APA documentation is 25%. The annotations themselves are 12.5%. And the completeness, I'm sorry, is 25%. And the completeness is 15%. So the 2 big parts here are the documentation style, that is whether or not you've got the item in the annotated bibliography in correct APA format, and then the annotations, that is whether you accurately summarize the source and explain how you're going to use it. So those are the two biggest things. And then the other sort of big thing is completeness, that is whether you have everything that you should have. So it should be 5 sources, 3 of which are scholarly and peer reviewed, includes a 1 to 2 paragraph annotation after each source, summarizing the source and explaining how the source will be used in the final report. So if I were you, I would go to your computer and print up the rubric and use that kind of as a check against what you have. We're going to kind of use that ourselves as a check against what you have. We're going to talk about the annotated bibliography, and we're going to kind of go through the criteria, kind of going from a sort of a broad general view to a more specific. Keep in mind that there are 2 parts to the annotated bibliography. There's a citation and there's the annotation. That's why those are the 2 biggest criteria. Why do we have you do an annotated bibliography? Because doing an annotated bibliography is, 1, helpful for preparing you to write something. And it forces you not to wait to the last minute to do your research. It forces you to collect your sources ahead of time and actually read them. So that's one of the reasons. The other is more within the annotated bibliography itself. It allows you to focus on these 2 skills that are really important, any kind of research writing, which you'll be doing throughout college. And that is learning how to document in a format. And in this case, we're working with APA. And in particular, it's learning how to do the references. And then secondly, learning how to summarize and use the research that you find. These are 2 skills that are tough to learn, so it's worth focusing on them for a while. So let's see. All right, so I was wandering around the web. I found this really good library called the COM Library. Does anybody know what COM stands for? It's actually the name of a college. It's a college in Texas called the College of the Mainland. Anyway, I think they have a really excellent library website. And I am going to I'm going to be using a lot of I'm going to go to a lot of sites, and I will put the website link into the chat box so you can open it up. And then when the recording is, they will also give me a recording of the chat box, and so you can take advantage of it there. So this website has a really good sample or really good information about the annotated bibliography. including a sample. So the first thing I want you to do when you're looking at your annotated bibliography is look at it from afar. From afar, you can tell a whole lot. You can tell if there are 5 sources on it. How can you tell? Because there should be some kind of indication as you go through the sources that a new source has started. Reference entries are done in hanging indent, which means reverse of regular paragraph indent. And so because you have a hanging indent, that signals that you have a new reference source. So I want you to look at your source, at your annotated bibliography, and see if you can easily tell if you have 5 different sources, because each reference should be in hanging indent. Now, the annotation under it does not need to be in hanging indent. And how you decide to format that is kind of up to you, kind of make it look good. This particular sample, they use the left paragraph. In the sample that I gave, from class earlier, I have my reference as hanging indent, and then the summary, the annotation is indented and flush with the outside margin. Why do we care? Because you're trying to make it easy for somebody to read it. If it's not clear when one entry stops and the next entry starts, it is tough on the reader. And you don't want to give the reader, make the reader have to do any more work than necessary. The reference should be double spaced. Whether you want to do the annotation double spaced or not is up to you. In this sample, they did it both ways. I mean, they both did both of them double spaced. In my example, I did the reference entry double spaced, but the summary single spaced because I think it looks better. But, you know, it doesn't really matter. Let's see. What else can you tell from looking at it from a distance? You can tell if you have 5. You can probably tell if you have at least 3 scholarly ones, maybe not. You can tell if you have a reference and an annotation from both of them. And I guess that's what you can tell from a distance. But that, you know, so that's a first start. If you're going to need to add some things, make sure you put a note and say that you're going to add them. If you need to change the formatting, let me remind you how to change the formatting. So if you have an article, a reference entry. No, I started my annotated bibliography here with centered, but I need to change it to left. So I'm just copying some text. So right now it's block indent, i.e. no indenting. How do I make hanging indent? In both Word or Google Docs, It's just a formatting change. In Google Docs, you go to Format, Align and Indent, Indentation Options, and then Special Indent Hanging. And then the blue thing, Apply. In Microsoft Word, you do the same thing. You go under Format, Paragraph, Special Indent, and Hanging. To change from single to double or double to single, you look for the formatting tool. In Google Docs, it looks like this. In Word, it looks exactly the same. It's called line spacing. You click on this and you tell it single if you want it single, or double if you want it double. Sometimes the formatting will add spaces before and after paragraphs and it'll make things too big. So sometimes you have to go back and tell it to stop adding these extra spaces. So that's what you can do from a distance in terms of seeing whether your annotation is your annotated bibliography is meeting the criteria. So now let's look at the does this rubric show up on top? Does the rubric
Yeah, it
show up?
does.
Was that a yes or no?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't know, you know, when it shares screens, if it shares all the windows. That's actually why I didn't go into Word, because switching between things sometimes is a problem. So the reference entry is supposed to say, if it's correct, it's all entries are accurate and complete following all details of the APA documentation style. So how do you know what the APA documentation style is? Well, as I said before, you need to get a reference guide. I suggested either the Excelsior OWL or the Purdue OWL. Additionally, you can also get stuff directly from APA, so I thought I would share some of that today. But of course, you know that if you have an article that you got from a database, it provides a citation. So somebody was interested in speed bumps. So I was looking for articles about communities wanting to improve, you know, to slow down traffic with speed bumps. And I found this article, which looks pretty interesting to me. Note that it says get full text or get from another library. Turns out if you work a little, you can get it through full text. But before we do that, we look at cite. And if my computer would oblige. Aha. I think it's probably because I left it around too long. So we will go back. And get the article again. To improve, whoops. Okay, so here's my article. When I click on the article, I get these options, including cite. One of the options is APA. All I need to do is cut and paste. And here I have it. Now there's two things you need to do once you copy it from a citation creator. First of all, you notice there is this weird little sort of slightly shaded thing behind it. That's because it brings its own formatting with it. So under the format menu, under the edit menu, under the, well, I can't remember where to do it. So, but don't worry about it, because in Google Docs, you just want to find it. Whoops, I have to select the whole thing.
It's right up there with your options, right next to your indents.
Okay,
T with a clear thing.
it's next to the format.
No, you see where you have that. You already clicked on those three dots up in your toolbar
Oh, yeah.
area.
Mhm.
It's right under that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Google Docs, when you put help, it doesn't tell you where it is. It just does it for you. So they've kind of taken the approach that they wouldn't make everything really obvious necessarily, but they'll help you do it if you tell them you have to. I know it's under one of these things as well. So when I did that, we'll go back here. So I'm going to click on clear formatting. And so now what I have is my title and the entry all in the same font and no thing behind it. Now I have to change my title to centered, and I have to change my hanging indent to hanging. And then we have it. One of the things you might find is that if you're inputting it from a variety of different places, each place has a different font or a slightly different size. So you want to make sure that you've made this look like a consistent thing that's designed to be a whole thing and not just
Miss Matson, how do we clear the formatting in Word though?
It's the same thing. Let me see if I can share a Word doc. All right, are you, when I change to sharing a Word doc, can you see it?
Yes.
I don't know why it says I can't. Okay, so does everybody see a blank Word doc?
Yes.
All right. So here's my text that I just copied to it. Under Home, which is where you get all the main editing things. Just to the right of the font things is clear formatting. Whoops. So I have to select it all, first of all, and clear formatting. So I got rid of that little stuff. If there had been other things, I would also have gotten rid of it. Now, while we're here,
So now you can just highlight that and hit Control T and it'll make it an indentation.
yeah, Microsoft Word has it much easier.
Yeah, I think I just highlighted it and hit Control T.
Yeah, so for indenting, for hanging indent, you just do Control T. There's also a long way that is basically the same as Google Docs. You and again, you could, if you don't know, hanging indent. It just did it for me. Just did it for me rather than tell me how to do it. So to go back to clear format, it's this little icon to the right of the font icons, and hanging indent is Control T. So back to the annotation. Now, when I got rid of formatting, it got rid of all the formatting, including italics. What do we need to put in italics in an APA heading or entry?
The title
The title of what?
of the article or journal.
Which one?
The how willing are parents to improve pedestrian safety in our community?
Nope. It's the other one.
Wrong. Okay.
So the journal title is put in italics. And the article title is not. The article title is plain cap, and there is no quotation like in MLA if you've learned how to do MLA. Instead, it is put in sentence cap, and this is in fact correct. Additionally, right after the journal title, the volume is put in italics. So this is all that goes in italics is the journal title plus the volume number. Why, I don't know. It's just a random choice that they've made. I think it's easier for me to remember that the volume title goes in italics once I remember that the journal title goes in italics. remember with citation creators, they often have an error or two. A lot of times they don't have the title in sentence caps. They put everything capitalized. So you have to double check to make sure it's right. But it does, of course, make life easier because you don't have to look it up. Now, what happens when you have to look it up? So you need some kind of resource. As I've said, I like the books, but then I'm old style. And the Purdue OWL has become kind of the go-to source. They have a lot of material in there. All you have to do is get to this page, and they have a navigation menu on the side that shows their table of contents, and it shows how you get from places. So it's under writing, and then under writing is research and citation. And then under research and citation are each of the different styles. So below it's going to be MLA, Chicago, etc. And then below it, they have each of these different ones. So, and I've given you the Purdue OWL link before. It gives you the general format, in-text citations, the basics, and then the authors. This is I'm sorry, we're going to deal with references. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So your reference list, you have the basic rules and authors. So no matter what kind of format it is, you might have single authors or multiple authors or an unnamed author or a group author. It'll cover the same thing all at one time there. Articles and periodicals is what we just looked at. And what they do is they give you a basic template, and then they show you how it's done. And they give you a print journal versus an electronic journal. And if it has a DOI, you can put the DOI in there. That's a tool that DOI stands for Document Object Identifier. It's supposed to allow you to identify it and get to it, even if you're not accessing it through the same database. I don't find it that way all the time. And then if something is available on the web, you can put the URL there. Then it also gives you the same thing for magazines, newspapers, and reviews, all of which are basically similar but slightly different. And you figure that out. A lot of people have electronic sources. So if you have something from a web page, here is the basic format for that. If there's an author,
How would you make that a hanging indent when it's really short like that?
You don't need to. But what you can do, you don't need to. Hanging indent means it's gone more than one page, more than one line, excuse me. But the value of, once you're done with your whole reference list, you can just change it all into hanging indent. Then if you have to add something to an item, you're not worrying about creating the hanging indent, it's already there. So on a website, it's sort of a similar thing to a periodical entry. And all entries have basically three pieces of information: the author, the publishing information, including the date and the name of what this is. And so a website, it's very similar. It's, you have the name, same format. You have the year, month, date. If you can find a year, month, and date on it, you have the title of the page and then the site name. And this is a really important thing to kind of get in your mind when you're trying to figure out sources. So when you're Googling things and you find things, you don't always know exactly where this thing is that you found. So what you need to do is figure out what piece this is of what whole. So if you find an article, you need to figure out where that article comes from. Where the article comes from is the site name. If you're looking at an individual page, that's the page name. So let's say you're looking at ULR's website. And so you want to cite the department's website. The page is Rhetoric and Writing, and the website is UALR. Or if you're looking at a smaller part of the page, I clicked on undergraduate. So this is the undergraduate page for the Department of Rhetoric and Writing. So you would cite it as the undergraduate page and the website Rhetoric and Writing at ULR. And then at the end, you would do the URL. Now, many web pages do not have an author, like the Department of Rhetoric and Writing. And so their example here, you're looking at the ASPCA, and that's the organization. And the name of the page is called Justice Served, Case Closed for 40 Dogfighting Victims. The name of the organization is the same as the site name, so you don't put it again, and then you do the URL. You don't need to do a retrieval date unless it's something where the page is content is likely to change over time. Like, for instance, if you're citing a wiki that is publicly edited, because things are a little bit more stable. That's a change from before. So the reference list in the Purdue OWL organizes it by these different larger categories, and then you do have to kind of look within those larger categories to find other categories. As I said, another resource available, it turns out, is the APA's website itself. And they have created a whole bunch of handouts and guides. So this is the paper format up here, and then you go down here and you find citations and references. This is another one I'm going to share in the chat. And they have under in tech, under references and in text sites, this is a very useful, well-designed handout that covers journal articles and books and chapters in the edited books. And once you have those are once you understand these, pretty much everything is some version of that. They also have this handout, Common Reference Examples Guide, where they have a sample of each type of source that you have or might have. And then to go back to the Purdue OWL, they also have this APA classroom poster. Must have gone the wrong way. What happened to my, oh, here it is. And they have, it's a good summary of the most common types of sources that you might need. So right now, I would like to stop and give you a chance to look at your papers. I want you to look at each of your sources and make sure that you follow the right format. If you have any questions, you can ask me while we're doing this. And so if you have any sources that you couldn't find out how you would do it, ask me and we will see if we can find it.
This was really helpful for me because after going through this, I see now that mine is totally wrong. I didn't clear the formatting. So I've got some things I need to go back and clean up, but this was really helpful today.
That's good. We aim to please. So does anybody have a type of source that you couldn't find the format for?
No, I was able to find all of mine.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily about the format or anything, but the topic I was doing was the education on life skills in high schools and all that. I'm having like a very difficult time on the databases trying to find life skills other than literacy skills. I don't know if you have any suggestions on how I should search that.
Maybe financial life skills, or even try the basics. Does
I had
anybody have any
difficult-
questions on the documentation?
No, but I had trouble, like Ariana's saying, I had trouble with trying to find something with speed bumps in the databases, like how to narrow it down and stuff.
So, I actually found that article, which was about speed bumps.
Yes, I think I found that one. I came across
Oh,
that
good.
one. And I actually had 3 on my paper that I did find. And they're 3 peer-reviewed scholarly reviewed
That's
articles.
good. That's good.
So I guess the other 2 I can go out on the web and search if I'm having more difficulty.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
To go, I wanted to
'Cause it-
talk a little bit about doing the summary. For the annotation. So, Ariana, I'm gonna look for something. And in fact, anybody else who's having trouble, just email me and let me know. And I'll see what I can do to help.
Okay.
And because like, this is just fun to me. It's kind of like a treasure hunt. But so I suggested in this handout about creating a correct APA reference that if you have in mind the basic structure of scholarly articles, it is easier to make a summary of it. It is also easier to read it because you don't need to read the whole thing. And in fact, when we're talking about reading these scholarly articles, you probably won't be able to read the whole thing because they're too technical in many cases for what you're trying to do. But if you keep in mind that they're going to organize it more or less as an IMRAD with an introduction, something about methods, something about results, something about analysis and discussion, then you can understand, then you can figure out how to summarize. So they all have abstracts, and this particular one is really helpful because the abstract is even uses those headings. So the study objective is like the introduction, the design, setting, participants, that's all their method. And basically they did a survey of parents and asking them how much they'd be willing to pay for a variety of things. Speed bumps, volunteering as a crossing guard, attending a neighborhood meeting, or attending a safety workshop. So how much they'd be willing to pay and how much they'd be willing to donate their time. And the main results are the more parents were asked to contribute, the less likely they were to do so. So there's a limit to how much they're willing to pay, but some neighborhoods were more likely to contribute if they had higher ratings of solidarity. The median willingness to pay money for speed bumps was conservatively estimated at $6.43. Not very much, but median willingness to contribute time was 2.5 hours, and etc. The conclusion: parents place a high value on physical and social interventions to improve child pedestrian safety. So you get a lot from the abstract. You should not just copy the abstract though, because it is very compact and you may be missing things. So when you're reading something technical, you should probably read the introduction to get a sense. And you should read enough on the methods to understand what they're doing. which is this thing that explains their survey. And then you can scan the results, but it's very statistical. It's, you know, you're not interested in thinking about that. But go to the results to find out what in general they're saying, and then even more important, the discussion. And note, they've actually put out policy implications. So a summary of this article would be, you know, based on a survey of parents in the Baltimore area, the researchers found that parents were willing to contribute time and money for child safety. That would be a good summary of this article. The second thing that you have to put in these is how you're going to use it. So, Veronica, how would you use it?
Well, I guess I would use this, like maybe see how they did their survey if I was going to do one in my community, in my neighborhood. Maybe
Right, that
follow,
would be a possibility.
maybe follow some of the ways that they did that. And just kind of,
Are you really going to go do a survey?
no.
So how are you going to use it in this sort of very preliminary report you're writing now?
I guess just to see how important safety really is in the community to people that live within the neighborhood.
Okay.
You know, children's safety.
Who are you writing to?
I'm writing to the city and to my POA.
Okay. So if you look at this conclusion here, the key challenge for public policymakers is to devote public resources to projects whose public value is at least as large as the investment. So how does the community feel? How much is invested? This study emphasizes that investment in physical and social structures to reduce pedestrian injuries are indeed valued by communities. So why would your POA or your city find that important? How could you use it as part of your persuasive tact? Hello? How might, this is for everybody, how might a person use this article to convince the city to put in speed bumps?
They could show the statistics that they've got.
Right. I mean, all they really need to do is say, research shows, all you need to do is say, research shows that in many communities with high solidarity, parents are willing to invest in child safety. And then you cite whatever this name is. And that's all you need to do with this article. Bichet et al. Close 2003.
Yeah, because I actually saw this article, and when I started going down through it, I got so overwhelmed when I saw the charts and graphs, and I was like, oh my God.
Right.
You know, but that, yeah, that helps me know how I need to stop.
I'm sure that's how everybody feels when they read these articles. So remember, they're going to be organized in the IMRAD. You are not going to have the technical expertise to understand the method and the results, but the introduction and the discussion, that's where you can use the information and figure out what the overall thing is that they're trying to say. The APA had this nice little infographic. And here we're kind of moving towards the actual use of research in your sources, but it also applies at the annotated bibliography stage. So read the work you want to cite, and like I'm saying, for these particular things, you may skim a lot of it. It's the beginning and end that you're going to probably pay attention to. Identify an idea you want to put in your paper. Not the words you want to put in the paper, the idea that you want to put in the paper. And that's where I think the students run into the most problem. And part of it is because you may have used MLA in the past, and which has much bigger focus on the actual words that you're using, which makes some sense if you're analyzing a literary work, that you'd want to talk about the literary work and quote it. But when you're doing this kind of research and citing this kind of research, it's not the words that they said that are important. It's the idea from the research that's important. 3, write a sentence about that idea. And I can't emphasize this more, put the source away and write the sentence on your own. You want to make sure that you understand the idea and you're not just copying a bunch of words. Then you write a reference list entry for the work, you add the corresponding in-text citation, and you repeat as needed. But those first 3 points are probably the most important thing to get out of all this process. And I realize I've been grading your professional writing in the professions papers, and I realized that I did not focus enough on how to use research when writing. It's not an easy thing using research when writing, but it also is a really important skill to be able to do because so much information is out there and you want to be able to use it in all of the different things that you do. I mean, it's not just an academic thing. It's, in jobs when people need to change things, they have to go read out what other people have said and, try to convince their people in their jobs that this is the new way to do it because based on what they've read before. So this is itself a life skill.
I have one more question. When I was looking at an example of, you said you wanted it double spaced, but when I was looking at an example somewhere, the citation was double spaced, but the annotated part was all single space.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
So that's what I did in mine.
Okay, thank you.
Either way. And the only reason why I want you to put the citation in double space is because that's what the reference list is, and I want you to get in the habit. So you'll see out in the real world annotated bibliographies of all sorts of formats. But they'll always have a way of separating out the different entries.
Hey, quick question. Do you want them color coded like your example, or is just black as
No.
just-
That was just to show you so that you would kind of see my point. And that summary was probably longer than you needed to do, but I wanted to emphasize how you go through that process. If we had more time, I would have made everybody do one, but somehow there's never enough time. Any questions? Oh, Deasia, are you raising your hand? Maybe not.
Dr. Matson, I have a question. This is Brenda.
Hi.
So from your example, like the summary was not indented. Oh no, it was indented. Like it followed like the. Do you want our summary to be indented too?
It can be that way, or it can be flush left. Either way.
Okay. And then the second question is, you were saying something about removing the space after like the paragraph. Do you want us to remove it, or just if we're starting a new one, do you want us to keep
You do whatever looks best for you.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just wanted to point out that that's where the tool was.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so between now and when you turn this in, hopefully you'll make sure that you have met all the criteria, which is 5 items, 3 of which are academic research, academic scholarly papers, that each of those has a properly created APA reference item and has an annotation, and that it is edited and looks good. Any questions? Okie doke. Ariana, after this, I will go wander around these databases and see what I can find. Okay?
Okay.
And if
thank-
anybody else needs help finding things, email me and I'll see what I can do. So probably, I do have a meeting at 3:30, so. Okay? Questions?
No.
All right, so on Thursday, we'll start talking about incorporating, well, writing the argument. We're going to focus on, thinking about the argument as a whole. Your goal is to write a persuasive argument to this particular audience to do whatever it is you want them to do. So there's a whole course called Persuasion. We're going to do it in one classroom. And how do you persuade somebody to do what you want in a very rational, calm manner, not by arguing. Any questions? See you Thursday. Almost
Thank-
done.
Hey, bye.
Bye.
Bye.